I let my sister move in with me rent-free at her worst, and on my birthday she and hubby both sit me down and announce that she's pregnant with my husband's baby. And that sister expects me to vacate the house so that they can start playing happy family together, but when I inform her that the entire property belongs to me and that hubby is essentially a stay-at-home husband, no assets of his own, and now she's going crazy because she has been conned. I, 34, female, let my sister Julie, 28, female, move in with me a couple of months ago since she was in a really bad condition financially. Julie and I are not particularly close, but she had lost her job due to her company closing down, and within 2 weeks of that, she fell seriously sick due to the West Nile virus. And after talking to my parents, I decided to have her move in with me for a couple of weeks so we could keep an eye on her, monitor her progress, and make sure that she was able to save up on rent, since evidently she wouldn't be able to go back to work for a few weeks. She was probably at her worst at this time, and I was the one who had helped her out since our parents don't live around here and she doesn't exactly have a lot of friends who are in a position to help. I didn't even look at it as a favor. I thought that this was just the right thing to do, especially since I could afford it. But she repaid me by having an affair with my husband. And on top of that, she actually had the audacity to tell me that I was the one who needed to leave the house so they could play happy family together because she was pregnant now. This happened a couple of days ago. Julie asked both me and my husband to sit in the living room so she could speak to us about something very important. I thought that she was finally moving out because she had recovered quite well in the past couple of weeks. And I thought she was going to tell us that she was finally rejoining work and was going to be out of our hair. Instead, she told me that she and my husband had been having an affair for the past couple of weeks and right now she's pregnant. When I looked at my husband, I saw that he was just as shocked as I was. So clearly this was not something she had discussed with him before telling me about it, which explains a lot of things. Anyway, after she told me she was pregnant with my husband's baby, she told me that she could understand that this was probably a shock for me, and she was really sorry that this even happened. But at the end of the day, what's done was done, and now she would really appreciate it if I vacated the house, because she would that I was not going to vacate the house because this is my property. And if anybody had to leave, it would be her and my husband. And they could play happy family wherever they wanted to because I was going to be filing for a divorce and I didn't even want to see them anymore. I spoke to her as calmly as possible, kept my anger under control, and tried to deal with the situation in a dignified manner, because they had already caught me off guard, so I was not going to let them have the satisfaction of watching me freak out at them. Anyway, after I told her that this was my property and I would not be leaving, she told me that I would have to. And apparently, she thought that I was kidding. But then my husband told her that I was indeed not joking and told her that he was a stay-at-home husband, always had been, and he had apparently lied to her about everything that he had told her in the beginning. For context, my husband and I have been together for the past 8 years. We've been married for the past 5 years. And a couple of months after our marriage, I decided to take the leap and started my own business. With the grace of God, I've been doing very well for myself. And so my husband and I decided that he could stay back home and he could work on his writing career. For the past 4 years, he's been staying at home working on his big novel and taking care of the household chores. We don't have any kids, so he doesn't have a lot to do. But all the property and everything, it belongs to me because, technically, I purchased it, and both of us thought that it was only fair for me to own everything. I bet he's regretting it now though, because after he told Julie that he didn't actually own anything and he had been lying about everything, she started freaking out at him and claimed that she had been conned. She started yelling at my husband, calling him a scammer and a liar, and entertaining as it was to watch her lose her mind at him, I wasn't interested in any of that at that point in time. I just wanted both of them out of my house. So I had to intervene, get them to stop yelling at each other and tell them to get the heck out of my house that very instant. I was not even willing to give them any time. I just wanted them out of my sight. My husband is relatively smart. He knew that there was no way he was going to get out of this one, since there is nothing more important to me than my self-respect and dignity, and I was never going to take back a cheater. So he quietly went into the bedroom and started packing. But Julie decided to start begging on her knees, telling me that she was going to do anything it took to fix whatever had happened, but she just needed a place to stay. And since we were family, I couldn't just kick out a pregnant woman. Her bringing up the fact that we were family, that's what really ticked me off. So I grabbed her by the arm, got her to stand up and walked her to the door and then pushed her out. Physically, I was very rough with her, but I didn't care. I was furious at the fact that she had had the audacity to say that we were family and I couldn't kick her out. It really got to me. Once she was outside, she started begging me not to do this. But I slammed the door shut and then I went to the guest room, started stuffing all her things in her bags, and in a couple of minutes I threw those bags outside with her and told her to get lost or else I would call the cops on her. She kept crying, but I just shut the door and went back inside. And a few minutes later, my husband walked out with his bags, telling me that he was really sorry about this. But I pretended not to hear him. Julie kept crying and begging on the porch for about an hour after he left, but I just put my headphones on and blocked her out. After a certain point of time, I couldn't hear her crying on the porch any longer, and I realized that she was finally gone. That very night, I spoke to my lawyer, told him everything that happened, and said that I wanted to file for divorce. I thought that I would tell my friends and family later, but the very next day, I received a call from my parents telling me that what I had done was really unreasonable and that my behavior was heartless. I found that very strange because so far my parents have always treated me and Julie equally. It's not like she's the golden child or whatever, but the fact that they were actually defending her didn't sit right with me. They told me that it was heartless of me to kick her out when she was pregnant, especially when I knew for a fact that she was in between jobs right now and was recovering from a serious illness. So it would take her time to get back on her feet. On top of that, she didn't have anybody here who could take care of her as well as I could. All her friends were in the same boat financially and had their own work and family to worry about rather than taking care of her. So, as her sister, the least I could do was forgive her for her stupidity and be there for her. Instead, I kicked her out and they thought that I was being really insensitive, especially considering the fact that she was pregnant. And to top it all off, it was my husband who had scammed her and they said it as if it was my fault somehow. Apparently, my husband had been telling her that he owned everything and that he handled the financial situation at home because he was a really successful ghostwriter for novels and even film scripts. But since he didn't want the fame that came along with this, he kept himself anonymous. And my idiot sister actually believed all that. She started to think that maybe he was a hotshot, which is why she ended up seducing him. And since he was on a power trip, my husband never said anything about the truth either. Then, when she got pregnant, Julie figured that it was finally time to let me know that she had been having an affair with my husband, so the two of them could kick me out. Unfortunately, that plan backfired, especially since she hadn't even discussed anything with my husband before confronting me with the truth. And, essentially, she screwed everything up for herself and my husband. Anyway, I really don't understand how any of this is my fault. She brought this onto herself, and my parents' decision to pretend like she was the victim in the situation and that she herself had created was absolutely mind-boggling. So I fought for myself. I defended my decision to throw her out, because she was the one who decided to have an affair with my husband, and regardless of whether he played a part in it or not, it was clear that she played an equal part. Both of them had teamed up and betrayed me together, so it didn't make sense for me to kick my husband out and then let her stay as if nothing had happened. And it didn't make a difference to me whether she was pregnant or not, whether she could work right now or not, because I had taken all that into consideration before and let her stay with me for months. But she had thanked me by having an affair with my husband while staying under my roof. Besides, it wasn't even as though she was heavily pregnant and couldn't deal with anything. She was probably just a few weeks along and I'm sure she could handle it. And even if she had been 9 months along, I still would have kicked her out because what she did was disgusting. After all, she was ready to kick me out when she thought that our house belonged to my husband, so why would I worry about her? But my parents just kept talking about that one point over and over again, especially highlighting how rough I had been with her until I just got tired of them and I hung up. It was clear that they were not going to move on from that, and since we haven't spoken to each other. But now I'm beginning to think that maybe I didn't do the right thing. AITA for kicking my pregnant sister out of the house because the baby belongs to my husband. Update 1. Hey, thank you so much everyone for all the support and the comments. I really needed that since I had seriously started to doubt myself. But I really don't need to. I blocked my parents yesterday. I really don't need that sort of negative energy in my life, especially right now since I'm already dealing with a lot of stuff. I can't stop going to work to recover from what's been going on in my personal life. I'm the boss. I'm just gonna have to put on a strong front and deal with it. So at work, it's been business as usual. But as soon as I come back home, I just crash because, emotionally, I'm just devastated. I didn't let any of the cracks show for the past couple of days, but now it's really starting to hurt. My lawyer and I filed for divorce a couple of days ago, and soon enough I think my husband will be served. I know he's not going to contest the divorce. He knows me well enough to know that if he does, I'm going to make sure that he pays for it. But at the end of the day, it still hurts. Winning the divorce is not going to make the situation better for me automatically. I just can't imagine why, after 8 years of being together, he had to have that affair with Julie. I really believed that we were in love. I genuinely thought that we were going to be together forever and grow old together. But now I'm doubting everything that we have had in the past couple of years. Maybe this is not even the only person that he cheated on me with. Maybe this is just the first time that he got caught. And even the thought of that makes my heart hurt. But there's not much that I can do about it apart from just accept it and try to move on. He's the only person who hasn't tried to contact me after he got kicked out. My parents have, and so has Julie. But that's different because I know that they only want me to take her back in so that she can continue staying here for free. It's really shocking that even after she has done so much damage, she still has the audacity to expect me to help her out. And it's actually even more insane that my parents are siding with her right now. In my post, I spoke about how my parents had never had a favorite child. They had always treated me and Julie equally. But right now, I honestly don't know what to think about this. I don't have any expectations from Julie herself. I had already said that we were never very close, and the only reason I had helped her out was because I knew that financially, it was not going to be a big deal for me. And we already had a spare room at home. So why not? And that's what my parents had wanted as well. So I didn't see a problem with helping her out, since that's what family does. But I never really expected anything great in return from Julie, at least. However, with my parents, it's a different story. Given how they've always been reasonable and fair, I expected them to be upset with Julie. And I'm not saying they aren't. From the conversation that we had earlier, it was clear that they were not happy about how Julie had chosen to go about the situation. But they kept insisting that the damage had already been done, and now the only thing that we could do was just accept whatever had happened and try to move on with it. But accept how? How am I supposed to accept the fact that my sister, who I supported at my worst, decided to have an affair with my husband, who has been with me for almost a decade, and on top of that actually expected me to leave my own house? It's bizarre to even say out loud, and I'm somehow supposed to accept it and help her out even now. I honestly don't know what's gotten into my parents, but they have seriously disappointed me with their behavior. I think I've lost all respect that I had for them, and I don't think that I can ever regain it, because the situation right now, it's really bad. Emotionally, I'm just done, and mentally I'm only focused on my work, but everything in my personal life has pretty much fallen apart. I haven't even spoken to my friends about it, but I know at some point I'm gonna have to let people know that this is happening. After all, my husband and I have a lot of common friends together, and I would rather that they found out about the situation from me than him, because I don't know what he would tell them. At this point, I don't know what to expect from anyone anymore. Anyway, now I'm only trying to focus on a couple of things for a while. First, of course, my work shouldn't suffer because of this, and I'm going to make sure of it. Secondly, I also have to worry about the divorce proceedings, because even though I'm 90% sure that he's not going to contest terms, since I've decided to be pretty fair and reasonable, there is still a small chance and uncertainty about what he might do, because right now, it's anybody's guess. So I'm keeping all the documentation prepared and stuff just in case, but other than that I'm trying to keep my head as blank as possible, because I really don't want to overexert myself and end up spiraling. That's the last thing that I need right now. But venting about my feelings here has been really helpful, and I really appreciate the fact that so many of you have reached out to me, commented on my post, and been so supportive. It means the world to me. It really does. Update 2. Hey, just so as I had expected after he was served, my husband decided to hit me up and tell me that he was not going to be contesting the divorce, and he found the terms of the divorce to be very fair. He sent me a text saying all this, and then in the next one, he told me that in the past couple of days he had been thinking of ways to apologize to me. But he just couldn't come up with anything, because everything that he thought he could say just seemed really flimsy and insincere. And so he just decided to get it out of the way by telling me that he was really sorry by text. He told me that he had lied to Julie just to impress her, because he had been feeling very weird lately about the fact that he didn't own and have to rely on his wife for his finances. We don't even have a kid, so he couldn't even have the dignity of being a stay-at-home dad. He just felt useless, and since his novel was not coming along that well either, he felt like he had wasted 4 years of his life on something that was going to take him nowhere, and he had been feeling particularly depressed about it, but he couldn't even acknowledge it to himself, let alone talk to me about it. So he was feeling really bad about himself, and then when Julie came along, before he could even think about the depravity of what he was doing, he was lying to her about everything, trying to impress her, and soon enough they were sleeping together. He thought that it was just going to be a fling, and he felt really guilty about it, but he just couldn't control himself. He needed a way to distract himself from everything that was going on, and that was his way. But then she got pregnant, and we had that horrible conversation 2 weeks ago, after which everything pretty much went to absolute crap. And he told me that he really regrets everything that he did. He screwed everything up for us, but he promised me that this was the first and last time that he had ever cheated on me. This had never happened before, and he really needed me to trust him on that. And maybe sometime in the future, if I could, then he wanted me to forgive him for everything that he had done wrong. That was the message. And after I was done reading, I ended up crying, because it was just another reminder of everything that I had lost. I thought that I had this man who I loved and who loved me, but within the span of one day, I lost all of that. And trust me, it's not easy to deal with it. I know that every person who has ever gone through a divorce or been cheated on, they'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. I can say a bunch of horrible stuff about him, make myself hate him for now, but at the end of the day, it still hurts. I hated myself for crying over that text, but at least after I was done crying, I got the strength to block him without replying. Because to be honest, even though I was very upset about everything, he did not deserve a reply, and I was not going to forgive him, especially not right now when everything is just so fresh. After a while, I actually started feeling a bit annoyed with everything that he had said because all he had to do was just talk to me. I, for one, had never ever made him feel bad that he was choosing to stay at home and work on his novel. I'm not a very creative person myself. I've never been one for writing and stuff apart from right now since I really have to get these things off my chest. But I respected his creative side, and I didn't see anything wrong with him staying at home. I could understand that maybe his fragile male ego couldn't handle it. Maybe other people have made comments and things, and maybe he just became bitter. But the least he could have done after 8 years of being with me was at least let me know what he was going through, and then maybe we could have worked it out together. But he chose not to. He chose to let himself suffocate without letting me know anything. And then he chose to distract himself by entertaining Julie and her advances. The more that I think about it, the more disgusting and pathetic I find it. The fact that he lied to her about so many things just to make himself seem bigger and better. I loved him the way he was, but that was not enough for him. He had to go out of his way to make himself seem more impressive with a bunch of lies and then cheat on me with my sister. This is just never going to make any sense to me. At least with Julie, I could understand her motive. She wanted to live my life and get ready without putting in any work, and she thought that she could do that by getting pregnant and moving in with my husband, the supposedly rich guy. But with him, I just don't know why he did it and ended up ruining everything that he had. And I think that that's punishment enough. Who he is bad enough. I don't have to punish him more, so I can just choose to ignore his existence now. In a few months, I'll be done with divorce and then I'll just never have to see him or think of him again. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since my last update and I was having a quiet few days, but then today, in the morning, my parents showed up at my house. I found it strange because in the past few years after they moved back to my dad's hometown to run the family business with my uncle, they would hardly ever visit, and it was mostly Julie and I who would have to go see them. So the fact that they had taken a flight and came to visit me was a big deal in itself. But I knew that they were only here to talk about Julie. And that's why when I opened the door, I told them that if they were here to talk about her then I really didn't want to entertain them. After all, there's only one Sunday every week and I really didn't want to waste mine by going over the same things again. I had said whatever I had to and so had they, and right now we had nothing more to discuss with regard to that situation. And I also made it very clear to them that I would only let them in if they apologized to me for everything first, because I believed that the way they had behaved with me, the way they had tried to constantly guilt-trip me into believing that I had treated Julie badly when it was she who had screwed up everything, it was not right. So they could either apologize to me right now or they could leave. I made my boundaries very clear, but my parents told me that they had come specifically to talk to me about Julie and I couldn't just weasel my way out of it by pretending that I was too busy. They told me that we had to discuss this because as family we couldn't treat each other like this. Once again they were bringing up the whole family thing, and just like with Julie, I lost my temper with them as well because this is not how families treat each other, at least as far as I'm concerned. Even though I'm not very close to Julie, she was family so I helped her out. But instead of respecting that and being grateful to me, she literally had an affair with my husband. Is that seriously how a family is supposed to treat one another? And if she can do that to me, why am I supposed to be kind to her even after that? She destroyed my marital life and I know that my husband had an equal part in it, but so did she, and I don't have to forgive her just because she's family. She didn't think about me before doing what she did, so why exactly am I supposed to do that? At least I had valid reasons and explanations. She didn't. I totally put my parents on blast and they kept trying to fumble and come up with arguments, but I didn't even let them speak. I just steamrolled all over their arguments. And after I was done, my mom had literally been reduced to tears, and she just kept repeating that I couldn't talk to them like that. But they were on my turf. I could speak to them however I wanted to. Especially because they had decided to get on my nerves this morning, even though they already knew that there was no need to discuss this since my personal life was already pretty bad. I didn't need them adding fuel to the fire. I had already warned them when they showed up that I was not interested in talking about this, but they had still decided to test me. So they really had no right to pretend that they were very hurt by whatever had happened. They should have been expecting exactly this sort of outburst. Anyway, after I was done yelling at them, my mom was sobbing so hard that my dad just told me that he never wanted to speak to me again because clearly I had lost it, and then he walked away. But I don't care. They can believe that I'm crazy. I know that I'm not, and that's enough for me. If anything, they're the ones acting crazy right now, and that is all that I need to know. Update 4. Hi. So it's been a month since my last update, and I haven't been in touch with anybody from my family, not Julie and definitely not my parents. I'm guessing that now they are funding her, so good for her, I guess. As for my soon-to-be ex-husband, I heard from a couple of people that he is living with his parents now, and after this has been finalized, he's going to be moving out of state. By now, pretty much all our friends know exactly what happened, and they have started cutting him out of their lives, most of them at least. Some of them don't want to get involved and remain neutral, but I don't really care. All I know is that my life is slowly but steadily getting back on track, and I'll do anything to protect my peace now.